Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are watching and listening. This is the Holistic Monitor, and I'm your host, Nick Sconia. We look forward to your participation, discussion, and input. Your support has meant the world to me this last year and helps to bring better production and secure the topics you want to hear. Head to holisticmonitor.com for ways to listen in and support. And with that, let's get the show started. I'll make sure that you can hear me this time around. My last live stream, I did a whole round without the volume on. But now we are live on Tuesdays, 9 p.m. And it's a little late tonight, and that's going to happen. It's going to flex here and there. We are in the realm of Mercury retrograde now, so I expect lots of fun delays and whatnot to happen. We're going to have our guest tonight, Regan Forston. He's going to be joining us. He is a facilitator for people to visit the afterlife in their current life without a traumatic experience. So I'm very interested to hear about that. That's going to be, he'll be on here shortly. When he comes on, we'll pull him in, I'll say in about 15 minutes or so. And he's written a book as well, 3 hours, 33 minutes. And let's get that sound off there. There we go. I hope everybody has had a good start to their week. And really looking forward to this new show format, the live on Tuesdays. Very different from what I'm used to doing, but I think it'll be a really good time and a good experience for everybody. So his book is called 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. So that gives you an idea as to where we're going to. So we got this. I want to make sure all of my components are ready to go. Yeah, so it's been good. So I actually wanted to drop in as well. We have a new intro. We have the holisticmonitor.com website. Still working on some more product line for you, stickers and whatnot. Some of it's metaphysical, not specifically show related. And then, of course, you can also support the show directly with the Holistic Monitor sun emblazoned on a shirt. Something like that would be great. Show it off. Take a picture. We are at the 1 year anniversary of the show. And we changed formats a few times on the show, but so far so good. Where I was the guest and host. It's got a really good showing, and it seems to be taken off. So that's great. And I really thank you. Which is talk as well, the Holistic Monitor. A good thing. Up. So yeah, it's been good. More about. I'm very open to exploring new guests and new topics. As part of the show, I like to focus on philosophy, spirituality, and holistic wellness, alternative medicine. And the gamut is very large. It's a whole spread of different things and show topics that I'd love to cover. Ancient stories, ancient philosophy, anything that would be something that would help our current state. A story from the past that kind of makes sense, maybe gives us a good moral to the story to bring us full circle. This live chat up here. Okay. So another note for the things going on. We have the new website, Life Energy Publications. That is the place for life energy research, the self-awareness formulas, and we have a full page full of books, also some merchandise there, as well as lots and lots of information on how you can also learn the self-awareness formulas and what the benefit would be for you in that as well. So that is something else we have going on in the moment. More drop frames. Well, that is live, folks. So we should be having him join any minute now into our feed. and looking forward to it. Now, the podcast that you hear is coming out about a day to 2 days later than the actual live. As it says, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. The podcast gets edited and reformatted and put out through the Spotify and Amazon Music and all that on Thursday. So if you wanted to catch the show live and wanted to make bring up some questions for the guests, you can do that with the live show. As a side note, you can also comment after the show has already been produced, and I can also forward those questions over to the guest. Tonight, again, we have Regan Forston joining us, and we're going to be talking about what I believe hypnosis and the life between lives. That's the name of the show. We're going to be going over the world that we visit after we pass. And there's a lot of mystery to that. It's definitely a subject I have studied a little bit about. I definitely have found that very interesting through some things that I'm going to bring up with the guest to see what his thoughts are on that. And what I'd love to hear from anybody watching that wants to join in on the chat or in the questions afterward is if you've had an experience with a near-death experience or a astral travel of sorts that brought you to a place that you thought was also the afterworld, and what your experiences are with that, what your thoughts are as to where you went. Some people say that it's just the mind, or the DMT being released into the brain, that gives us a different sense of awareness, different perception to the world around us, opens up more senses. Myself, I love the subject. I definitely think that the reincarnation subject is a pretty diverse one in that, dropping frames all over the place. Is a pretty diverse field of study. This, see if I can just turn that off. There we go. Diverse field of study that I know that through hypnosis they can bring people to past lives and journeying now. So I'm going to have him join in here in just a second. Make sure that he is showing on the stream. Make sure he can hear me.
Can hear you fine.
I can hear you. Okay, great. We're going to jump in here. And okay, there we have you. How are you doing, Regan?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, I was just trying to fill some time gap there. And was talking about what you do. You have a book that you put out. I want to make sure I get it all straight. It's a lot of threes. 3 hours that you're using in the title.
Yeah, that was an approximate time of the time I spent on the other side, and I just know with the power of numbers, that it just seemed to be better than saying 2:18 and 20 seconds or whatever,
Right.
2 hours and 20 seconds or something there. I've been 2 times now. I went the second time. I haven't written a book about it, but it was more brief, and 28 of us therapists, we swapped sessions and we did it over Zoom. And
Wow.
Back during COVID, we all went and asked the same questions about COVID and the vaccines.
And
then we each sent in our what it was, because we're all, the 250 of us now, they're carrying on Michael Newton's work, are just deep into this research of, so it's fascinating work. I mean, I get goosebumps time after time when something new happens that we haven't discovered, or my client has it, and especially, what I call A++ session, where they get all their questions answered, talk to everybody they want to talk to, and then something out of the ordinary or something happens, like now, what I've done in the research, I started asking the council, when people before the council, and I'll say, because they've gotten a lot of information along the way about how to fix things in their life, or what they need to do to reverse some of their health issues, things like that. And so it means my clients have work to do when they come back. They've got to start doing some self-improvement and get to taking care of themselves. So I ask them if they can see a possible future of them. In other words, if they follow all these things and fix things, can they look into the future a little bit and see what it would be like? And so far they've said yes. So for a little bit, my clients are somewhere, and I let them, I'm just kind of quiet while I'm next to them for a little while. And then after a while, they'll say, wow, or something. I'll say, well, tell me what's going on. Where are you? What's going on? And things are pretty good.
Yeah.
That they have. So they get a little glimpse, and then they're back before the council. So kind of getting interesting.
Interesting.
There's no time or space over there. So when I have someone in a past life, we have them go to a past life as just a doorway to the afterlife.
Right.
Because they have memories of that life and what happened after, and about them going home. And so it's an easy way to kind of get there where we want to go. Actually, here's what's been interesting lately too, that I've done with my clients. When they see themselves pass away and they're ready to go home, about half hour for a little bit, and then a few minutes later they say, okay, I'm ready. And I'll say, well, what'd you do? And it's interesting to hear the different ways that they try to get through to us, most of which you've heard about on other shows or TV things, because it's so common. Like someone has somebody die and they'll say, oh my gosh, my uncle appeared to me in my dream last night, and it was so real, and he was just smiling or waving. Some people wake up in the middle of the night and they see like a hologram or something, or someone waving at them.
Right.
They're in the house, and all of a sudden the lights are flickering all over the place, and they'll have an electrician come out and there's nothing wrong here. And then they think about their father, whoever. They always had this this ritual where she'd be reading a book and he'd come up behind and blow on her ear from behind, and it would get her, And so he said, well, when I passed away, that's just what I did. I said, she was there grieving and crying and stuff, and I snuck up behind her in my soul self, and I'm trying to use all my energy or something, and then she went like this and looked kind of like right where I was, and I said, she's going to be okay now. Because she realized, that's my husband. So it helps to take a little bit of the sting out of grief there. So, and then I ask my clients, I say, okay, now what happens next? And in a sense, they're like rising up above there, like above the earth. They can see in wild distances, and then there's like a guide or a family member that's on the other side that's there. And then sometimes we ask the family member, because sometimes family members that passed away were actually their guides who came down in the physical form to be with their person. That's happened sometimes, but usually like a family member is just there because they know the ropes, and they're gonna say, hey, I'll take you home. So sometimes I'll say, well, can the family member take us to your guide? And then we follow them, and then about 99.9%, almost all of the hundreds I've done, the people get to meet their guide face to face. And that's a big thing in the session, because it's this real big awakening of people realizing that none of us are ever alone.
Right.
We always have somebody on the IPS someday. Once we, raised up to that level of love, one of the jobs that you can have up there is to be a guide to help other people. Eventually people get to where they're on councils and so forth. It's like on the other side, it's just a continuing journey. Clients say, well, I want to see God. Where's he at? And everybody goes, he's there somewhere. It's like, even in this part of heaven here, he's greater than that even.
Right.
And,
the humanness.
Are a little bit, they'll go, whoa, is this satanic at all? Or whatever. And I go, it's as far from that as you can get.
Right.
We've found nothing but love and light over on the other side. And so if they're Christian and they decide to do this, I say, well, you talk to Jesus if you can. And so we'll, before the council, and we'll say, well, my client has chosen, Christianity as their way for spiritual enlightenment. And they'll say, fine. And they'll say, is it possible for my client to have a conversation with Jesus? And the three that I had this last year, all three of them, oh my gosh, two of them, they had tears. They're in trance, they're deep in hypnosis, and they just had tears coming down their eyes.
Mm.
And so I'm quiet while they have a conversation, and then afterwards, and everything that Jesus talks about, I mean, because Jesus knows that a lot of people look up to him as their person who's helping them evolve.
Yeah.
So when people ask over there, because some of them, they'll say, okay, I'm before the council now, here I am, what's the one religion that I should follow? Because I love where I'm at right now, and I want to do the best thing that I can. And they'll basically, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but they'll say, well, if you feel you need a religion, you probably do need one. So, pick a good one that makes you feel like you're progressing. What should I do to kind of stay connected here? And every single time they tell them meditation. They say that's God's gift to us to shorten the length or shorten the space between here and there. Because when you're in that deep meditative state, that's when you can kind of hear what they're trying to tell you. That's when inspiration can be, which is interesting. Where they get their inspiration is some sort of meditative state. Right. Yeah. What's it called? There's a guy he's had like 1 million people go to his class. Silva, I guess it's the Silva method. Have you heard of that?
That sounds familiar, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, it'd be great to have someone on there be a guest on your show. And what they do with corporations is they teach the people in the corporate sector how to take themselves to, and then you act on them in the awake state. Mm-hmm. And the Silva method, I think the son is taken over from the father who discovered this back in the 40s or something.
Oh, okay.
So it's just helping them get to that relaxed state. Yeah. And, people say, well, I don't think I could, it's hypnosis, right? I don't think I can be hypnotized. And in my experience now, everybody can if they allow it to happen. Right. Some people just can't let go and relax. So and then we don't get anywhere, but about 90% of my clients have this beautiful experience within one. Sometimes it takes a second session. I've had a couple come 3, and one person refused to give up and came 4 times. And finally, on the 4th time, she had one of the best sessions ever. So it's because all we do in this whole thing is we take people through the process of falling asleep, because that's all this is. It's just getting really, really relaxed. Scientifically, if you're looking at someone's brain waves, like right now, you and I, when we're talking, our brain waves are real close together in the beta state. As you begin to relax, and they've had people on machines, they show that they start getting what they call the alpha waves as you start to fall asleep or meditate. Mm-hmm. And then theta waves come in. They're a little further apart. And then delta. Well, what we found out is right when you get into the theta state, and the only reason we say that theta state is because that's when, if I wasn't talking and communicating with people, they'd just fall asleep. Okay. Yeah. So just to kind of keep you right on the edge, it's the same feeling is, when you just wake up, you're still in your dream, but yet you hear someone turned on the TV in the other room, but you're still finishing that dream up, but then you remember that you hear the TV in the other room. So it's kind of just staying right there on the edge. And that seems to be where I call it a God switch that almost everybody has, where you can access these memories of past lives and everything. So we're right around 70,000 now that we've helped.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, because it just interplays so well, and you can play the movie, you can have strange actors come in, all sorts of great stuff. Broadcast for the future, the holodeck, just kind of play out the day. That's my favorite time to meditate. It's right in the right when I'm in that space.
When people meditate, their day is totally different than if they don't. It takes the sharp edges off of things. Yeah. As I say, it smooths us out so that even if you have problems, you can navigate through them easier.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
it's like life medicine.
Yeah.
Now.
So your
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
I was to say your podcast here now. You're New York time.
I'm in Kentucky, and Kentucky in the far tip to the west is Central. But so I really probably should be in Central Time Zone. I'm that close to the line. Sunsets.
The only time I've been in Kentucky, I went across the bridge from Cincinnati into about 2 miles inside Kentucky, and they had a ventriloquist museum there. I'm trying to think what it's called, but I went over there too. I was a ventriloquist back in this for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so I went to the museum there, at one time to see all the. It was a convention for actually ventriloquists, so that was nuts.
Wow.
I mean, you had like 200 guys going around and their alter egos, and it was almost too much.
A lot of voices being thrown around the room.
Yeah, a lot of. I remember thinking, geez, I'm doing this crazy thing, but that's how I made my living for a lot of years.
Wow, how about that? Now, let's go into that a little bit. You've only been doing this for a few years. What got you started? What kind of motivated you into this almost a realm of service?
Yeah, well, it's been like a long time happening, as I'd say. Like I go step by step in the book, The 3 Hours, 33 Minutes in Heaven. I go step by step about these things that happened where my life would just shift, and all of a sudden, wow. I mean, I've had so many shifts, but I had my first, I was 4 years old, went to sleep, and the next thing I knew, I'm on the ceiling looking down at my body. And I jumped up. I mean, I was like, it scared me so much. I guess it forced me back in my body. I jumped up, ran into my father's room, and he came in with a broom and showed me there's no, I didn't know what to say. I mean, all I knew is it shocked me that how can I be looking down at my body?
Yeah.
No one ever taught me about that. 4-year-olds don't know that.
Right.
So it happened another night, and then it began to scare me. So I laid back I laid up when it was time to go to sleep, and I tried to, 4-year-old, what's your logic? I'm trying to keep myself from going to sleep. Like I don't want this to happen. It scared me.
Right. Eventually,
I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, there was 2 men standing in my room, and I can remember it plain as day. And they were dressed in white, and I was not afraid at all. It actually was very calming. And I don't know if it was through telepathy or what, but they just told me, it's okay. It's okay. We're not going to let this happen to you again. Just you can close your eyes and go to sleep. And I did. And then, so nothing ever happened until I was 23. And I found this, or I should say the spiritual path found me. It was called Ekankar.
Oh, yeah.
And they gave me a mantra, Hugh, to sing. And they said, look, this is all about you having a personal relationship with God, And so they just said, sing the Hugh, boom, boom, start this relationship. So, I'm in there trying every day for like 6 weeks, and nothing happened. And I'm getting disappointed. And although I would always feel really good after meditating for a while and singing the Hugh, And then one night I did that. I dozed off a little bit. Next thing I know, I'm in another world. I mean, it was so awesome. It's like I can remember it. Like the skies were yellow. There was like wheat fields of like yellowish brown, and there about every acre there was like one of these giant. Only thing I could say is oak trees because they were big and fat and really impressive, And then all of a sudden I realized that I'm looks like maybe 100 feet up in the air. I wasn't in a body really. And I was seeing 360 degrees, and that's when it was kind of like, oh, F,
yeah,
I'm out of my body. And so and then brought me back in my body. And that's when I lost my fear of death. That's when I realized again now that I'm more than this physical body, and that jump started me to look for anything spiritual,
Yeah.
So I started reading all the holy books and, going to different churches and different things. Kind of got me started. So, what I started learning to do is follow, I guess you call it inner guidance. It's that thing where, people, oh, it's a coincidence or something. Well, they get to be so much in your face that you go, this just isn't coincidence.
Right.
And I would learn sometimes I'd be somewhere and all of a sudden I'd get this guidance and I go, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to follow the guidance. And when I would, amazing things would happen.
Yeah.
So I ended up going from, when I look at how I started out, I went from being a paper boy to working at a service station. And then I was a door-to-door salesman. Then I started my own door-to-door sales company, Then I became a real estate broker, had a real estate company at 26 that I had. And then I gave that up at 29 to go to clown school.
Wow.
So, became a clown and a juggler and a stilt walker. and became really known in the clown community. And actually, they have a picture, a statues of me and my wife, who was a clown too. We ended up touring in a museum there in Wisconsin. You know, was something. And I ended up teaching clown school at the University of Wisconsin, and also at Michigan State University, when they had a summer program for teaching people to be clowns professionally. But that turned into being a corporate comedian. And that turned into being a fake motivational speaker for corporations. And then I went to Hollywood. I ended up being in 12 years in Hollywood, being in a bunch of movies, mostly independent films, short films, and, you know, commercials, that sort of thing. Ended up down in Mexico. Then, you know, 2008, that's when all the financial thing happened. And where I would usually get about, say, $5,000 to do a corporate show, you know, fly in, do a custom comedy show for a corporation, couldn't get hired after that. I mean, it was like $500 if I could. So I was guided. My girlfriend was sitting next to me. She happened to see a little tiny 1-inch ad in this little paper of some sort. She said, "Hey, look, here's this place. They say they'll teach you to hypnotize people, and it's free." You know, and it was a university in the biggest hypnotherapy university in the country, which is in LA. And they let you come in to get a taste of what it's like the first weekend. So I went to the free weekend, and all of a sudden I thought, you know, I could become a stage hypnotist, because those guys could work every weekend at the same bar for a year, because, you know, it's the same, you know. So anyway, then something happened. It's like when I started realizing how the mind works, and how you can actually program what, you know, you can take out some programs in your mind that aren't working and put good ones in there. And I thought, why aren't they teaching this to children, to schools, so people have more, you know. Anyway, long story short, I said, you know what, I think I'm gonna help people with their issues instead of making them quack like ducks, you know, like in a stage show.
Right. It's an act.
So then people would come to me and they'd want to do a past life regression. And by this time I'd had some past life experiences, like in the dream state or when I was in meditation, had some kind of pretty dramatic stuff happen. And so I totally believed in it. And when they would come to me, it was so much fun to do the past lives, because it's something different and exciting, you know, better than help people stop smoking or lose weight. Yeah. You know, the regular things that hypnotherapists do. And then my fiance, back about 7 years ago, for my birthday, she was taking me to Hawaii. Well, I had a hypnotherapy client. I was helping him paint his house. It was a gentleman. But I got myself into, it was 110 degrees out. I was helping him paint his house because he couldn't afford it, and I needed to get him in a home where he could get some care, and he needed to sell his house. So I would help him there. And that night, or on my way back up to San Francisco, because that guy was in LA and I was going to my girlfriend's in San Francisco, and I started shivering and I was cold, and I thought, I must just be heat stroke or something, you know. Well, had to catch a plane the next day. I got so sick on the plane when I got off. She took me to the emergency room. They did a scan of me, and they says, you know, asked me if I smoked, and I said no. And, you know, when I was 10 years old till I was 14, I smoked, but that was, and I never inhaled, you know, so I can't have cancer. They said, well, we're flying. So they flew me from one island to another in a plane. It was about a 30-minute trip. And, you know, my bill was like $22,000 for that 30-minute little trip. It's crazy. Wow. But anyway, I ended up in a hospital in Hawaii for about a month and a half. And they thought I had stage 4 lung cancer. So I was like, going to be history. So it makes you do a lot of reflecting when you're sitting there in the hospital bed and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know how I got this or whatever. This might be all I have left. But anyway, they did a biopsy and they found out I had something called valley fever, which is rare. It's something you can only get in parts of California, a little bit of upper Mexico and the Baja in upper Mexico, and parts of Arizona. It's a little spore that's buried in the ground, and like when they have a dry season, the wind comes up and it gets in the air. You could be just driving down the highway and you breathe in one of those microscopic little spores, and it starts growing in your lungs, and it's fatal for a lot of people that are elderly, you know, when they're over 60, and I was at that time. So anyway, I'm laying there for that month in bed, and all of a sudden what came to me, I remember reading this Journey of Souls, which was Michael Newton's first book that he wrote in 1995 or so. And I had read it back then, and I was so enthralled by it. Like, wow, I want to do that. I want to visit heaven. I want to have this huge, wonderful out of body experience. So I remember checking into it then, and there was a 4-year waiting list. So I went, forget it,
Right. Oh, forget
that way.
that. Yeah.
But then I got to thinking, hey, I do these past life regressions. I'm getting pretty good at it. And I decided when I was there, not knowing if I was going to live or not, I said, you know what, if I get out of here, that's what I want to do. And when I put that intention there, anyway, I finally got out of the hospital. I applied to have it done. I was broke at the time with all these bills and everything. But some beautiful person helped pay like half of my tuition. And they were doing the training 50 miles from where I lived, of all the places, because they do it 2 places in the world every year. And it was 50 miles from where I lived. So I was able to get the training done. It took me about a year to get certified, because they're pretty strict. You have to have enough successful sessions. They look at it, make sure you're doing everything right, and then they certify you.
Yeah.
And so it's about 8 years I've been doing it now.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I was just on, coast to coast last Saturday.
Right.
So, oh God.
How'd that go?
I had 3,000 people in my website.
Oh, wow.
And I've got, I think 130 people want a session. So, what I'm doing, I'm going to help as many as I can.
Yeah.
And then there's 250 of us, so I'm going to spread it out, and get everybody working,
Wow,
so.
that's amazing. Yeah, my show's a lot smaller than that, so don't expect a flood or anything.
I just doesn't matter.
I appreciate you being on my show. There you go.
This is great. See, that's what I want. I was on the board for a while, and mainly because I was good about booking podcasts and things and kind of spreading the word.
Yeah.
But then when there was all the other duties that came with that, I wasn't able to keep up. It was too much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Administrative and all that, and I wanted to actually be in the field, So I did a resignation, but they asked if I could still help with public engagement. And so what I really want to do is to get booked for, some churches are actually open to this. I know.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Some churches are more progressive now. And companies, I'm surprised sometimes there are some companies out there that really have owners that are spiritual, and they send people on retreats, and they have people come in and teach them about, mindfulness and meditation and that sort of thing. So I want to be available to go in and speak to groups, as well as doing as many podcasts as I can.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my
the outreach,
my thing now.
The PR.
Yeah. I have my busiest week coming up next week. Usually I've been able to cruise with this, and I think there must be saying I'm ready to take on a bigger workload, but I would try to do not more than maybe 3 a week, because sessions are about 5 hours long. I'm actually certified with the quantum healing hypnosis, Dolores Cannon School, also.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is she was doing research the same time that Michael Newton was. They didn't know about it until they happened to run into each other, and they found out they were getting the same results. So it was pretty great. But she concentrates a little bit in that quantum healing. They concentrate on a little bit more about the healing aspect, finding out about people's health issues, seeing if they can get some healing or some reasons why. So what I do when people are before the council now, I'll say the council, I says, well, now that you've answered all their questions that they prepared, and we thank the council, I says, my client has some health issues we'd like to address. May we? And they'll say yes. And I'll ask the council, I'll say, should I ask my client's higher self to do a body scan to see what we can do? Because we know that can be done, because that's what Dolores Candace does. Or I'll say, do you have somebody here that's maybe more qualified for the issues of my client? About 70% of the time they say, no, we have somebody here. And then immediately, there's a being in front of my clients, and we start addressing their health issues. And I had an interesting one last week. I had a gentleman came to me. He's got cancer in 5 places in his body, 5 tumors. He's only 38 years old, and the cancers are small. But they identified him when he went to, there. And so they're keeping an eye on everything. Yeah. And what we found out was, we asked is why? Why is my client having to go through this? And it was because of his abuse of alcohol and drugs and everything as a teen, a young man up, for like 10 years or so, that had just messed up his body, and when we asked if it was possible to reverse these, they said yes, but it means he's got to be off alcohol, any drugs together, and he has to start eating. They gave him that he was seeing himself eating good foods and things in his body. So we asked if we could have then I said here's what was interesting was, they said, well, he was describing this being in front of him, and it was like a being that was like 40 feet tall. He's like, his side was this giant health guy. So we asked guys, because we ask all these questions because we're researching, so I say, ask the healing person. I forget what he gave us his name, but I forget. He says, why did he appear to you as this giant this way? He says, I'm trying to show you that you are this big, that you can do this, so it's very interesting. That was really good. Just saying, in other words, big, you can do this, and my client's 6'4", he was 6'4", so he's a big guy already. But, so then we asked if he could do a body scan, and the being said yes. And I told my client, okay, I'm going to be quiet for a little bit. You experience this and then tell me what happens. So a few minutes later, he says, he says, we're done with that now. And I said, what happened? He says, the being took his energy and pulled it in. It was like, he said, it was like my energy, like I had a finger, and he took my finger and put it into the guide. The guide put his finger into the guide's chest, and he said it was like he could just feel like these like colored energy, like waves of energy, like probably like a scan, just through his body, all these colors. Wow. And he said it was very pleasant, that way. And then when we were done, we asked, see, unless you ask over there, they won't just heal you. Right. Because you have to, rest. They won't invade on you at all. Right. You have to ask. Yeah. So we always say, well, now, can you heal him? And they said, well, he's got to do a lot of work on his own for this to be reversed. But he said, I've begun the healing. As long as he does the work that he has, I've kind of jump started it a little bit there. So that was so we'll see what happens. Yeah. So, and you keep track of that as well. You get feedback later that will tell you whether or not that has taken effect. I need to do, that's one thing. Like I started that a year and a half ago, and I've been doing this, 6, maybe 8 years now. I've been doing this 7 years. I have to look 6, 4, 5. I've been doing about 7 years, I guess. Yeah. And like, for instance, a client that I had a few weeks ago, she's been trying to get pregnant for like 8 years, and it's just not work. She wants to have a child so bad, and she feels that there is a child in her future, but it's just not happening. And she's had donors, sperm donors, and done everything that she can. So when she's on the other side, I thought, hey, just ask. She asked one of the questions. It says, is there a child in her future? And they said, most possibly, not for sure, but most possibly. Well, a little later on in the thing, when she goes to her soul group, because this is one thing in the life between life process, everybody gets to go to their soul group, and that's a group of souls that you normally incarnate with. And so, like an acting troupe, I look at it like, all buddies, and like they decide, okay, who's the next play? How can I be an actor in your play? I'll come down to earth and incarnate to help you, and everybody helps everybody. Right. So all of a sudden, she's at the soul group, but there's only 3. She sees like beings of light that she says, and that's unusual because usually there's a lot more. And I'm thinking, because she had a whole list of people she wanted to talk to on the other side, So this one, she said, she was describing her. It was kind of like angelic, like a young girl had yellow. There's a lot of yellow in her aura, a lot of colors in that. And so I said, well, maybe that's your guide. Maybe that's another guide or something. And the angel or whatever she's seeing said no. And he says, well, can you take us? Because it's funny, she was the only one that when she passed on, the guide wasn't right there. And so what we had to do, we had to work around that. And I think it was a relative or something took her somewhere, and then she went to the council, but she still hadn't met her guide. So she went to the soul group and just saw these 3 beings. And we thought, well, hey, maybe this is where her guide is. And nope. And then we asked this, I said, well, ask the one that you feel close to there that's communicating with you. Can she, because it seemed like it was a female energy, take us to the guide? And she said, yeah. So all of a sudden there was the guide, So then all of a sudden my client's in trance, and she starts just crying. Oh my gosh, just let out this cry that, oh my gosh, I'm wondering what's going on. And she said, this angel that took her there, she said, this is going to be my daughter. I guess and so they started communicating, and that being said, yes, you're going to be my mom, but it's not going to be for a little while yet. And then she said, the other good news is that your soulmate that you've never met yet, the person who with us, has agreed to come down and be my stepfather. And he's going to come down once I'm like, 2 or 3 years old. And because she'd always wondered about that too, because she was this great person, but she just has not met the right guy. That's why she's getting sperm donors, because she's getting older. She wants to have a baby,
Right.
So, and she's agreed to keep in touch, over the next few years and let me know what's going on. So if I'm on your show in 2 or 3 years, I can say, hey, remember that?
Yeah.
I just had her baby,
Perfect.
Now,
yeah. What this brings to mind for me, and maybe for listeners as well, is Edgar Cayce and the Sleeping Prophet. The idea that he laid a lot of groundwork for what we understand now of this behind the scenes thing going on. This whole, like you said, a production basically of life behind life. A lot of groundwork was laid, and I know that a lot of the terms that he used came out of the time that he was in. Not that there's time, not that there's time outside of this box, but but a lot of things were done as far as past life regression for people that were writing in, and healings, and I don't know that there were definitely future prophecies as well, right? That was a Sleeping Prophet.
Yeah, matter of fact, I just watched a few weeks ago a documentary on him, or something that's out now, and I learned so much that I didn't know. One of my clients had this thing for Edgar Cayce, so I said, well, hey, when you're on the other side, let's see if we can talk to him, and he did. We asked if we could speak to Edgar Cayce, and they had a nice little 10-15 minute talk, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of a lot of these cases. They get kind of jumbled together after a while.
Yeah, I'm
but
sure.
I remember some of the things that they one of my clients, the one that had the tumors, he'd had this affinity with Tesla, all the time. He says his birthday's the same day as Tesla's. He just had this affinity with him, and he actually talked to Tesla about a couple of his inventions that he's been having trouble getting them on the market. There's some really pretty cool. There's a really good app that's amazing, and something about it's like shoes, and you wear them, but it doesn't matter if you put them on the right or the left foot. It's still you can use, like, so you can just, like, if you lose a shoe, you just buy another one. It doesn't matter if it's right or left, kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway, Tesla kind of told him that, good luck. He says a lot of times inventions that you have are these ideas. He says other people are getting, so many people are getting the same idea at the same time because the information's out there.
Yeah.
And people pick it up. It depends on who picks it up. Kind of told him that don't these just might not work, even though you're putting all this time and effort into it. But it's good that he did it, because he's got his creative stuff going, and maybe the next invention will hit.
Yeah, you never know. And that's asking Tesla, who had a lot of issues getting his stuff through to the market.
Yeah. I asked him. I
buddy.
have this. I've been wearing this. It's a blue plate, they call it, that's supposed to be test the energy that we don't see that is around, and people they call them Tesla plates or whatever, And so I because usually we don't ask questions or anything about ourselves, because it's our client session.
Right.
But I couldn't help myself a little bit, and I'm wondering if I got rooked on this or not, or whatever. And Tesla just he says, well, it might or might not work. So thank you, Tesla.
Gee.
So
maybe.
Anyways, I'm still wearing it.
Because you never know.
So it's so wonderful now that we now, it's for people to know about Edgar Cayce, like he would go into like a dream state.
Yeah.
And then he would be able to see things for people. Well, that's what we're doing now, is we're allowing people to do just what he did. where we get you to that same state that he did. And what's nice about it is they get to see firsthand what tests, instead of secondhand, they're getting it firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're seeing all these things. It's like you become, I tell people a way to kind of think about it is you become like a medium.
Yeah.
Now some people that are mediums, they don't have to get into a deep state of trance. They are one step ahead of us, and they can just see things when they're wide awake.
Right.
And I said the rest of us mortals, and that's for us to be like that. We have to get to this, kind of trance state,
Yeah.
in order to do it. And that helps them to understand a little more, because when I'm doing these sessions with people, they're totally aware that I'm sitting next to them and they're in a session. Okay. They're talking to me. We're doing all this. And some people think, well, because they can hear me and everything, they kind of thought, well, they would just go into trance. And then when I bring them out, they go, tell me what happened, but it's not that way. Although it used to be that way, when Michael Newton first started this in Dolores, Canada, back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of times people would only remember little bits and pieces. And so they'd have to listen to the recording, and they were shocked, like, oh my God, that's what I said. And that's what I learned. But there's been this shift in consciousness now, where I think the wall between the other side is gotten like this now. And so people don't need to be, in a total trance state, where they don't remember it that deep, to remember everything.
It's that.
So to some people that makes it.
Yeah. It's that the knowledge base, it has infiltrated people enough that that veil is a lot thinner. It's more common knowledge. It's more allowable. And whereas before it was like a no-no, and there was a taboo and everything. It was basically a lockdown. Maybe it has something to do with the change in the ages, or something. All that goes together the way it's supposed to go together. But there's definitely a greater acceptance to things being possible, and that, I think, is a big mechanism for hypnosis, is that it has to be believed, and you also have to allow it. And I think people are a lot more open to that possibility. We have the knowledge is now so available to us all over, of all these different systems. Again, the groundwork was already laid prior to Edgar Cayce. You're talking to a wall. You got to get him to sleep.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, and it is really interesting to see, because I remember even hypnosis in the 60s when I'd first heard about it, and something I remember thinking, well, I wonder if that's true. But then there was so much like, oh, that's a bunch of garbage. That's, people are just have their imagination. It's not really that. And then there was a lot of the churches were saying it was the devil's work, so, and warning people against it.
Yeah.
But look at it now. I mean, hospitals have hypnotists on their payroll sometimes. And I know John Stassi, he used to have the TV show. What I'm thinking, is it John Stassi?
That sounds familiar.
It was NBC, CBS, or one of the main guys. Anyway, someone will know what that is. He did on ABC or NBC, CBS, one of those things. He did an expose on it, and he was there in not a delivery room, in an operating room, and the person was having skin burned off her face because she was having to have facial surgery. And she did it with just the man came in, put her in hypnosis, and she didn't take any anesthesia, and she's in this deep hypnosis, and all he saw was a couple little tiny twitches, and that was all she needed. And the reason they did that is she was allergic to all these the anesthesiology, to any of the drugs that they use, and sometimes when they tried it on her, it would take her months to get better from just the anesthesia. So they said, well, let's try hypnosis. So afterwards he interviewed her, and he said, did you feel any pain? She says, no, I just felt him kind of touching my face and that. And he says, well, what was going on in your mind? And she said, oh, I was up in Alaska, and I was with all the penguins up there, and I was swimming with the penguins and watching them in the cool, breeze like that. So apparently the hypnotherapist said that when this happens, this is where you're going to be. It was amazing, so that's started making believer out of a lot of people.
Yeah. It was on the news. Exactly. There was a book that came out in the 90s that I read that was really insightful, and definitely kind of brought more cohesion and more, I don't know if it's science, but it brought more mainstream through the practice of, I think it was psychiatry or psychology, was that Many Lives, Many Masters.
Oh, I was just going to ask you if that
Yeah.
was the book. I
Yeah.
was going to say, is it Dr. Weiss's book? Yeah.
Yeah, real good.
Yeah,
Real
that's
good.
been he's got another book out now too for the listeners here too that's good. It's called One Soul, Many Bodies. That's really good.
Right.
And on my website, I have two videos of him on the past life thing. One is his daughter on there, where she got like a healing or something through, his techniques.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I remember seeing him when he was on Oprah one time. This was before I was doing this work, and he said that for so many years, even though he did these past life regressions, he still wasn't a believer. He thought there must be something with the mind.
Yeah.
All he knew is that when people would go back to a past life, they would find out something about their health or why they're a certain way. They would come back out of that experience and their problem would just disappear. He says, so whatever it is working.
Yeah.
And then one day when he had someone in hypnosis, his son showed up and wanted to talk to him through his client, and that's when he went, oh my God, there is an afterlife. This is really real. And so, then to this day, yeah, he's the pioneer.
Yeah.
Him and Dr. Newton and Dolores Cannon.
Okay.
Three of the big ones, that way. So here we are talking about it, letting some people be hearing this for the first time and they'll go, what? It's possible to go to heaven and back? That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
I tell people it's like having a near-death experience without the death part.
Yeah. Now, initially, I wasn't sure if
like.
I wasn't sure if you were talking something about, by that description. I thought, does this have anything to do with DMT or, any kind of induced state that would take us to another alternative perspective on life. They say when you die, you have that DMT gets released in your brain, and that might be where the tunnel vision and all this afterlife visions come from.
Yeah, a number of people who come to see me have done the ayahuasca, quests and things like that, and they've done mushrooms, they've done DMT, and what those drugs do is they kind of open the doorway, they kind of break the barrier a little bit, and you get glimpses and things. But what's so nice about this is we do it in a really organized way, so you stay there as long as you want, and so
it's
generally
safe
speaking,
too. Very safe.
It's safe. Yeah, we've not, there's no devils or demons or the only thing that's just a real tiny thing that people experience sometimes for just a moment. It's like if they're in that past life, if they have a difficult death, if they're being chopped or stabbed or hung or whatever.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
Yeah. But we're trained to just immediately give them a choice, and they can either stay right where they're at and experience it because somehow their mind works it out. But most of the time they'll look at it like they're watching it from above, like they, watching it like on a movie screen.
Right.
In that way.
Being played out. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's what was interesting. The very first session that I did, I always remember it was a medium from Australia. He had a TV show over there every once in a while. And he got a few death threats and stuff like this because of stuff that he was saying. And it was really bothering him a lot, And so when, and here I have my book of my training. It's about 2 inches thick. And so I'm, as I'm putting him in trance, I'm kind of turning the pages so he can't hear the pages turning, going kind of quiet. And I'm about 3 or 4 pages in, and he's in trance, and he goes, Regan, I'm already there. And I said, you're in a past life? He goes, yes. So I'm going, page and page, beginning to kind of catch up with him, And he was a young girl. He was a young girl. He had 2 buckets. He was carrying 2 buckets of water. She was carrying 2 buckets of water. I says, where are you going with this? He says, back to the horses. And I said, okay, let's see where the horses are. And I said, 1, 2, 3, you're going to where the horses are. She goes, I can't. And I says, why? And she says, because the buggy that's coming down the road is going to run over me and kill me. So here I am in my first session, and I'm thinking, in any way in the world, I'm going to tell that little girl to cross that road.
Yeah.
I was like, it really shocked me. It was like, whoa. And then, okay, I'm okay here. So I told the little girl, I said, you got to cross the road. And then all of a sudden I waited a second. I said, what's happening now? And she said she was bleeding out. She said the wagon ran over her. She was bleeding out. And so I quickly said, 1, 2, 3, you can watch it like you're outside your body watching it. She says, no, I need to experience this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was quiet for a little bit, and then she said she was done. I need to stay around because the man who ran over me is beside himself. He said, I need to calm him. I need to let him know somehow energetically that it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
So that was really sweet. Here's this, she just had that. Anyway, then there was this guide. He calls him Merlin. And Merlin, come to find out, he's so advanced spiritually that he doesn't even go to soul groups anymore. He just works independently. And he was working with 8 other of these independent souls that had incarnated on Earth to try to do what they can to, to bring us all up.
Right, rise up.
And it was so funny because I'm sitting there. This is my first one, and I'm nervous as heck. And all of a sudden, he's in trance, and I'll call him Tom. Okay, Tom says, Regan, my guide Merlin wants to talk to you. So I'm thinking, oh my God, here's somebody from the other want to talk to me. What's going on? I says, okay, what does he want to say? And the guy from the other side says, calm down to me, because my foot was going back and forth, and I'm thinking, this is crazy, this is that. So anyway, here's the thing that was nice though. You think, well, hey, how does it, what, and the other people on his team, they're on the other side, was he came down here to be a medium, and he says what that means is you have to tell people exactly what you see. You don't sugarcoat it, because it's up for the people to deal with what you give them. Okay. And that was a big thing for him. He says, yeah, I need to forget about sugarcoating things. I need to tell people because that's their lesson,
right?
When you tell them that. So that was worth he said that was really worth, the session for that. So, yeah, but
wow.
Most the past lives people mostly go to, we call them digging potatoes lives. People think, oh, I'm going to be some king or queen,
right,
or some famous person.
Doesn't happen.
They're in an old shack somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just normal people,
right.
having normal lives.
I find that I had a chest issue that I thought was a heart attack. I had all symptoms of the heart attack.
Wow.
For about 45 minutes, I was having shortness of breath. I was getting tunnel vision. And I had a bunch of memories come up during this time that were just like, well, not nonsensical. They were definitely organized of some sort. And they had meaning that I was getting a flash of this memory that was connecting to things that was like a meaning. It was very important, but it was like really small stuff. Like that one time, like leaned
what?
Up against the bush and the stick poked me in the back. Right. It had more meaning than I thought it meant at the time. But I'd also forgotten about it. Now I remember it. That kind of thing,
Yeah.
It felt very profound and very connected to like my whole life's experience, and I really didn't know how to put it together. And then the heart chest thing, went away, and I was just left with this like, is that what it's like? Is that what that moment of the last breath, so to speak, of this life are memories that are connecting to something. What I find is interesting is I had a regression done, a past life regression, and I've had it done twice or 3 times, and it always takes me back to like the point of time of death, and the lessons seem to be somewhat connected to this current life in some way. And one of them, I was some high holy person, only one of them. So I did have a station at one point, but I wasn't a good person, and I was taken out of this temple, and I was being stabbed. I was getting carried out and stabbed in the back from underneath in the crowd. And
wow.
So there's this weird connection that played out into this current life. Now, I don't know that it connects any dots or closes any gaps in the electrical current, for the DNA or for the lives, but the fact that I have this weird connection of all these strange things that it may bring up in my life When I leaned against the bush, it may have brought up the lessons of that
Stabbing in the
past
back.
life to be played
Yeah,
out in
yeah.
this current life. That may not be a good thing. So perhaps it's cleared that trauma
Maybe you
slash
having,
lesson.
yeah,
You know.
that's interesting. That could be. It's almost like you worked it out. Um, what I found out, like, when people are having difficulties that's in their life, that's I have people write a list of questions they want to have answered before the council, and they ask things like that.
Yeah.
You could ask about your situation. Well, I had this poking in the back and went to this past life of that, and then you can say, am I all clear on that now, or is
Right.
there something I'm still working out, or whatever? If you hadn't worked everything out yet, then the next question would be, okay, how can we do this? Can we do it right here now? Because there's some understanding you can have, so we can just end this, so you don't have to have it in your life right now.
Yeah.
Or I had a client a few years ago, and she was a nurse, and there was 3 doctors on rotation. And one of the doctors, when he would come in, if she knew he was coming in, she'd be in her car and she would have panic attacks before she went in, because she knew that at some point during the night he was going to pull her aside and be very cruel to her emotionally. He would, you're the worst nurse, and you're horrible. You should just quit. You're ugly. Whatever it was. So we get to the other side. It's one of the first questions we asked the council. We said, my client has this issue with this doctor who's very cruel to her, and we don't know why. And then, can you in trance? And she grimaced when she heard that.
Yeah.
It's like
Just
she
what
didn't
he
want
was
to hear
saying.
that.
Yeah.
We didn't want to hear that. But anyway, here's the beautiful thing was, when she came back after that experience there, we talked about it for a bit, and she says, I just want to hate this guy. He's
Right.
just so mean to me. But she let that sink in for a while, and about 3 months later, I did follow up with her on that, just because I was cared about her when it was going on. And she says, weird, Regan. He says he's totally not doing any of that anymore. He says, I don't talk to him or anything like that, but it's okay now. So something shifted.
Yeah.
You don't know if it was her energy that shifted or what, but it's having that realization. Maybe something happened in her subconscious. She worked on it and said, hey, maybe I'm just getting payback,
Well, see, the idea is that we get stuck behind the veil and we think we're all separate, and this time is very linear, and we get really stuck in a perspective of what the experience of life is, with the few senses that we're using. In that case, she may have turned a switch, an electrical switch, a dynamic, spiritual switch for her group, that cleared that cycle of karma that was going on. I'm using that word. That cycle, a vicious cycle that was going on energetically between those two souls, like 2 suns rotating too close to each other, and then they just freed themselves of it. Who knows, right?
Yeah, it's because see, sometimes it's I guess you just have to kind of figure it out. But when people decide to be who they're going to be, they decide a game plan, and they decide the lessons they want to learn, or maybe the things they have to go down to, their karma that they have to pay back. So it's hard sometimes to differentiate between whether it's karma that's happening to them, or is this difficult thing they're going through something they signed up for to happen so that they could learn by getting through the difficulty.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult sometimes to know which it was. And sometimes it's because I've heard and read different case histories where the client decides, he's looking at Earth, decides he's going to be this person. He's going to go through these difficulties, and he can handle it. Well, he gets down here, and you get in the human body, and all of a sudden, not as easy as they thought it was from up above.
Yeah.
And I've heard of, like, some souls, they get sidetracked, they get off track, they get, off track on what their mission is and everything. And so some of the difficulties they're going through are just caused because they just started making wrong choices that they didn't think that they would make, but they did,
Right.
So it's those 3 things, and you have to kind of try to figure it out, Did they just cause it, or is this something they're supposed to go through, or are they supposed to just, finish up with some karma? So
the tangled web that we weave.
That's what makes it interesting. Tangled web, boy, don't we?
No doubt.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, now, where can the audience find your book?
Oh, easiest way is Amazon.
Amazon.
If they type in 3 hours 33 minutes, it usually pops up there.
Yeah.
On my website, if they click on it on my website, I'd visit theafterlife.com. It'll take them right to Amazon, right to the page.
Okay.
I'm giving away the other book I finished recently. I have an ebook out. It's called Reincarnation is Real. And it's about all the current research being done by the University of Virginia, by the Newton Institute, quantum healing. And it's kind of a fun book because you'll read something and then you'll do is, since you're watching on your computer, you click on the link and it'll take you to a YouTube video, which is, so there's kind of back and forth between reading, watching these videos and that. It's like 120 pages, but there's some amazing things going on there right now about, past lives. University of Virginia, I'll plug their book even, just came out with a book called Before. And Jim Tucker, who's the head of the reincarnation, I guess for 40 years now, they've had a reincarnation part of University of Virginia. Somebody passed away and left millions of dollars for them to do the research, but it's only with children who remember past lives.
Oh, yeah.
So Ian Stevenson was the first person that he passed away, and Jim Tucker took it over. And now they published a lot of their findings where they have hundreds of proven cases now where children would say what happened, and then they would send a research team to go find out.
Yeah.
And they found out that exactly what the children said was real.
Yeah, I've heard
so
of that.
that's a good one too.
Awesome.
That way. But Journey of Souls, that's Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls just passed the 1 million sales mark now. So there's a lot of them out there. People really want to know about this stuff. And at the newtoninstitute.org, there's 250 of us therapists on there. People can find, they click in their area and you try to find when someone's near you. But we found out through COVID, we could do these on Zoom.
Yeah.
And now a bunch of us are doing it on Zoom and having about the same results. So
that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you do have openings for people, or can direct them to somebody that's available.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, when I find out, because some people, like I'll send them homework to do, and they want the homework, and then they're not really ready for 6 months or a year.
Right.
I tell people you'll know something inwardly will tell you that you want to have a session when you're ready. I talked to some people 3 years ago, and they just called me the other day, and they said, my wife and I, we both want to do this now. I think we're ready. So it's no sales pitch here. It's just like we're here to serve, and people want a session. We'll try to make it happen.
And we like to say, get answers.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. People get the why.
Yeah.
So many things. And so when you come back, you stop bitching about your life and being angry at God for this or that. You go, I kind of signed up for this, so what am I complaining about? I better get to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're hiding in the illusion. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today here on the show.
You're welcome.
I definitely want you back on. I noticed there was a little lag on the video. I don't know if it's because it was cell phone, but the audio sounded great, so all good there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is either. It looks like I got 3 bars. I'm at my second home here in Monterey. Had to take a little breather. I'm about 100 feet from the ocean here.
Oh, that's nice.
And I need that sometimes, but I've been working nonstop from here, so
right. It's
a nice place to do. But I'd love to come on again. Another thing that I'd be happy to do, even not for business, but just because I like people knowing about this.
Yeah.
I have a regular hypnotherapy practice, and energy psychology is taking over psychology. Either the tapping, EFT,
right.
Havening Touch. Havening Touch is another one, and EMDR. One. Oh my gosh, we have, like, most of my clients are people with PTSD and have had a lot of violence in their mess,
Yeah.
And these 3 modalities, the first session, I have a huge healing, even the first session. Usually by 3 or 4 sessions, they have a semblance of normalcy again, where they've been going to talking therapy for 3, 4, 5, 6 years or more and not gotten anywhere. So it's good to let people know about that now, because that's taking over now. So the world is changing in so many ways. A lot of healing is now possible that before wasn't. So
yeah, it's true. It's true.
You're doing your work, and I'm glad you're a light worker just like me. You have a piece of the puzzle. I have a piece of the puzzle. We're all working together here to help each other get back home.
There it is. To rise up.
All right. Yeah, rise up.
There we go.
So just let me know if you want me back on. I'm happy to anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.